Hey, thanks so much for listening in. This is Black and White. I'm Noah Bennett.
I'm Jalen Carr.
And today we're discussing a wide variety of topics, just sort of general topics that I feel apply both to our artistry as actors and creators, but also have a wide range of applicability regardless of your background. I
Mhm.
mean, we're talking about comfort, where you find your drive,
Yeah.
dealing with rejection,
Mhm.
and sort of interpersonal dynamics, just sort of the lanes we find ourselves in as creators. So we hope you enjoy. Thank
Yes.
you for giving us a listen.
Thank you.
I feel like there's a dragon that we're all sort of chasing. In this career, in this profession, where it's like you're trying to find this sense of comfort and security in a field that's ultimately unpredictable because you're sort of always a free agent. You know, you're going job by job by job. And I think there are little times where maybe it's because of your situation, maybe it's because of the length of a project that you do get a sense of comfort. And with that, maybe a sense of ease. And I'm just kind of curious if, number one, you feel like you're in a place like that right now. And number two, does that make you complacent or does it drive you when you get to work with ease and comfort?
It's a good question. It's good things to think about too. I think being where I am right now, as far as a grad school student, I think I'm pretty comfortable because I'm not like actually in that world just yet, but we will be.
Mm-hmm.
We will be, and it can low key start in May. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, but like really just trying to enjoy these moments of just being a student of the
Yeah.
game and just learning and like soaking in everything we can because this is the time for it. Because after this, it's time to just go for it. Um, but no, can never get complacent. Can never get complacent. You always want to try to keep your foot on the gas at all times, but make sure that you are doing things that make you uncomfortable in a way.
Yeah, 100%. Although I will say sometimes it's easier said than done. Um, because I think sometimes you get to a place where it's just kind of like, I got a lot on my plate right now. Just sort of focus on this, and maybe that's the perfectionist mindset a little bit of always having to do more. Um, but I'm with you. I think we are in a bubble a little bit at the moment. And I think it's important to be aware of that,
Yeah.
and know that the circumstances as they are now, where we have this unique blend of balancing sort of the educational aspect as we both get to teach and be students at the same time, as well as like working on our craft at the side. In the last episode, we talked a lot about working on our solo shows, and we were doing that on top of teaching, on top of taking classes, and it was sort of a lot for the moment. But it's
Was
like, when else are you in a safety bubble situation
Mhm.
where the same group of people are looking out for you in all three aspects?
Yeah, really good time. Um, was there a time in your more recent days where you had to get uncomfortable?
Uncomfortable, I think. Yeah, definitely. I think here they've done a good job of trying to make us
Mm-hmm. I
uncomfortable
can
and make
agree.
us try new things. I have this writing background that I came into the program with. Um, and so when I create works, I'm very, I think, crafty but quick with it on page. And I remember I put together like this mini solo piece, right? And I thought it was banging. It was the one I worked on with you with the flashlight, where I got pulled over that one
Okay,
time,
that was cool.
and
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I was like, this is great, and I feel like I'm approaching a topic that is maybe outside my wheelhouse a little bit because I gravitate towards comedy mostly. And then the feedback I got was, this is way too much text. You should rely on the text less. And so as that semester progressed, particularly in that class, and I was like working on more miniature solo pieces, I was using less and less text until I got to the final performance, which was a communion piece,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that had no dialogue from myself.
I remember that.
So I eventually got to the point where I was just sort of a body in a place on stage. Um, And I was like also like allowing, this is going to sound so weird without context, but to explain the piece briefly, I gave people like paint brushes, scissors, little markers, things like that. And it was just sort of like I was blindfolded, and it was like you could go like write or paint or whatever like on my body. You could sort of like essentially like claim a piece of it. And it was this communion like thing. And obviously, I think this goes without saying, we were studying a lot of, I would say, out there artists. And so that was like the sphere of influence at that moment.
Sure.
But I'm kind of protective about myself. I don't really like people touching me like without asking and stuff. And so, yeah, that was a wildly uncomfortable experience to sort of be doing a performance where I'm not actually saying anything and I'm just making myself available.
Yeah.
And I also like couldn't, because I had the blindfold, I couldn't tell who was doing what or what was even being put on my body. I remember somebody like painting my mustache, which was it's a wild sensation.
I remember
Yeah.
who did it.
Oh,
I'm not gonna.
I had my guess at the time. Yeah. Confirmed it later.
Yeah. I do remember that piece, and I remember thinking like, "Oh, this is definitely out of the box for Noah."
Hmm.
But that's what it's about. It's about taking those risks and like just seeing what are your limits and things like that. And I was like, "This is actually really cool for him." And I forgot what I wrote.
So you wrote, and I think this was kind of outside the box for you as well. You had the durational piece
Mm-hmm.
where you were reading a poem repeatedly. He read this poem like 7 times or something like that. But you would go back between like planking and then doing. I'll speak in terms. It was like Pilates or something.
Like
where
6 inches is what it's
Yeah.
called, quote unquote. Yeah, that. Yeah, during that time as well, we were working with durational pieces as well,
Mhm.
and I just was like, man, let me just see how far I can go through it. And I remember being up in 435 and just trying it out, and like physically couldn't do it.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, maybe I actually can though. Maybe I can actually push myself more, and that'd be the point of the piece. So like I'm going through it and I'm timing myself, and as I'm doing it again and again, my time is getting longer and longer and longer, which ended up going about 10 minutes. I think we had to go about 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, but I just remember after that first day of the trial and error, my abs were on fire. So the day we actually performed it in class, I was already sore as can be. And I was like, whatever. We just finna do it.
I will say, and I want to explain for people like kind of what durational pieces are. They can be things that you're repeating the same movement, phrase, things like that over time, or it can be a piece that drags out over a long duration of time, to be quite literal. Do you have any other ways you would describe durational pieces of performance art?
No, I think you caught it up pretty good. Yeah, you're just continuously repeating a certain movement or a certain action, certain text for a very extended amount of time, but it has a meaning and a purpose by repeatedly doing this over for a long durational period of time.
Because eventually, when you're doing durational pieces, which I have a lot of respect for, I can't say it's like my affinity or the thing I'm drawn to, but there's a breakthrough moment at some point where the performer sort of melts away a little bit because they're struggling so much with the act of what they are doing. It's kind of like the Hot Ones logic, where a celebrity will get to a hot enough wing where their composure starts to slip away. And I saw that with you because you're holding this plank for maybe the 6th or 7th time, and your whole body is shaking at this point while you're trying to get through this poem. And do you remember sort of the nature of the poem and what you were speaking on?
Yes, the poem is called If by Renard Kipling, and I would encourage everybody to go read it and check it out. But it just talks about like if you can do these things, if you can have this mindset in your life. Like the last line of the poem is, if you can do this and that, the world is yours and everything that's in it. So it's like if you can be strong, if you can be humble, if you can be all these things, everything can be yours, you know. And in the most humble way speaking, and just like okay, let me keep my head, let me stay humble, let me work hard. If I can do all these things, I can achieve what I want. And that was just kind of the mindset with that piece. I was like, okay, if I can manage all of these things, I can get through these 10 minutes of this durational piece of physical pain I was going through. But I was perfectly fine though afterwards.
Yeah.
I wasn't hurt or anything.
So let me ask you this: would you ever tackle it again?
I would.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would, and I'll probably do it differently. Probably try to do it with push-ups because I know like if I get to like 30 push-ups, my arms start to hurt. So if I just did it push-ups for 10 minutes straight, that would be insane.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, again, it's not my calling. We've seen a couple of our peers do durational pieces, and it just always the effort, intensity, and focus that it calls for every single time. It seems like that's the common theme of those durational pieces. And with that, it's just sort of this persistence, this ability to power through. So I think that's like an interesting dichotomy, like talking about something that requires persistence versus like being in a place of comfort and ease. And so for me, it sounds like comfort for you means you got to go a different direction. And I think kind of as you progress, and I would say I feel similarly, I don't like doing the same thing. If it kind of feels like it's at the same level, I got to go a different direction. At the same time, I think having that awareness that you are in similar circumstances and you saying, I need to go someplace else, actually is that drive that like comfort gives you. And in a way there's a lot of freedom in that. Yeah. Because you're like, okay, I've been here before. I need to go someplace else.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like the main thing that I do appreciate about this program is because it allowed me to get uncomfortable in certain ways. And I feel like that with day one with our movement classes we would take with Janine, and I was just like, I don't really feel comfortable moving through this space like this or just being elusive and fluid with my body like this, but I just had to let go of any thoughts I had about myself and how I look or may feel and just be. And it opened so much up for me. And like now as a performer, I'm looking to use my body more when I'm acting versus just facial expressions or, tone of voice, but more fully getting into the character physically 100%. So, yeah.
I think the mental barrier aspect is something that can be applied to like almost any discipline because I think I would venture to say you will look bad at things you were trying.
Yeah.
But that's sort of the point of experimenting and trying new things is like you're going to fail, you're going to fall on your face. And that's something I've had to kind of find more grace with myself with. Obviously you're not always going to nail it on the first go. Yeah. We're about to work on something where we're revisiting a work that we've done in this program and just doing like a snapshot of it, like 30 seconds. And I think that's a really interesting exercise because it's causing me to reflect on everything I've done up to this point and be like, yeah, what did I not get right? And I'll be honest with you, there are more things that I feel like I didn't get right than got right, and that's just me.
Yeah.
And again, that might be that artist or that perfectionist, self-critical lens. What is your experience reflecting back?
Well, I mean, to that last little point, it's almost just like if you are taking pictures and you take like 10 pictures of like the same thing, but you only get like 3 good ones out of it. Those 3 good ones are good ones, and you can use those, and that's good. And the other 7, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because they led you to a place. Yeah, that's a great point, honestly.
What was your last question? Sorry.
Just reflecting on everything you've done to this point in this program, are you kind of finding a similar source of reflection where you're like, man, there's so many things I would love another crack at?
No, honestly, no. I just feel like I just really tried my hardest in all the classes, and I feel like I'm in a good place.
That's good. I mean, I feel like I also think I put in an extreme amount of effort, but I think there's something too, and I think this is what we're going to find pretty shortly. with another project we're working on that we're making a play with a bunch of other people. You know, we were so in the zone working on the thing, working very hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then everyone goes home for summer break. And when you get that sort of breath of fresh air, maybe it's that change of scenery, maybe it's just switching gears, going to another project, and then you're able to look back. Now that you're out of it and you're behind it, that's, I think, a really interesting source of reflection. This would be a great way to sort of recap our solo shows, because, you know, I go back and I watch the tape on that, and I sort of have this mentality, and it's something Kevin's told us, and that's the head of acting here at OSU. He's like, it's sort of that athlete mentality where sometimes you look back and you're like, could have given a little bit more.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the place I'm at with my solo show, even though I'm very proud of how it turned out, like super stoked about it. What is your experience?
Just now thinking about it more, and maybe you could attest to this or not, but just thinking about every single class we've had some form of group discussion in those classes, whether that's before or after or during the process or whatever we're doing. We always have discussions in a circle with us 8. But I just feel like I don't speak enough. But most times, just of like who I am, I just listen more than I speak, and like I don't know, like it just gets a little overwhelming sometimes in class when there's like 8 different ideas and voices all in one space. So I kind of just sit back and I just kind of really just listen and just see what everybody else is saying. And like if I just have something in me that's just burning for me to say, then I will say. But I just feel like throughout day 1 to class yesterday, and outreach, I could just be just speaking more, because I have thoughts flowing and turning all the time, but it's just like I just feel like I don't have to speak all the time, so I just sit back and listen. But maybe I could just start speaking more. Maybe I just implement that for this last year. I don't know.
Yeah, I can attest to the fact that you sit there and you listen, and I know you have thoughts on things because we hang out and we discuss these things. You know, we might even just hop on the phone like after class, and it's not just like, oh, let me talk about this in a non-group setting. It's just kind of like, I want your input because I know you have input.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad quality to be the person in the room that just listens.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, sometimes you kind of won't get your ingredients in the recipe unless you put them there.
Right.
So I think that's sort of the split of that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're moving from this solo process to a group process, which is very challenging. It's a great creative challenge, honestly, to have all the creative control in the world to sharing it in an 8-person pie. And we're still sort of in the midst of that experience, so I don't feel like I can fully unpack it, but maybe just reflecting on your show, like how was it just having that sense of full and total creative control?
Oh man, I remember a certain someone said that they learned throughout our solo performance process that this is the work that they want to do, and they just really don't really care to be characters anymore. And I kind of feel the complete opposite. Like it was just a lot of creative freedom, which can be really good at times. But I think I just rather be a character and just be directed. But I guess that ties into just what we talked about earlier, with just being comfortable and uncomfortable. Maybe doing things that makes you uncomfortable can help you grow more, which is a proven fact at this point.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I think ultimately growth doesn't come without change.
Mm-hmm. Taking risk.
And I think being here in itself is a big risk. Nobody was located in Ohio before this.
Right.
Don't know who will stay in Ohio after this. But we all took a risk in coming out here. We all signed up for a change of scenery.
Yeah.
And I think that shouldn't be understated.
Yeah, especially you and I coming from the South.
Big shock. Yeah,
The
yeah.
real South.
Yeah, I feel like there's always like a bonding experience when you're talking to people and you're like, where are you from? And they say anywhere kind of down there, way down south. Yeah.
Like you know a little bit. You got the hurricanes, you got the heat,
Mm-hmm.
you got all the stuff we got, yeah.
Yeah. I love talking to people and they're like, they don't have sweet tea up here. And I'm like, I know, I know.
Yeah. So let's talk about a time where you, as a performer, or it could be just in life, had to, I guess, like, face rejection, and then how you dealt with overcoming that rejection and moving forward?
Right. I think rejection can come in a lot of different forms. It can come from an individual person, it can come from an organization, and I think those hit very differently, especially depending on how close of a personal tie you have to that individual organization. It's going to sort of vary the degree of burn. Um, yeah, I mean, so I got into this grad program. This is my second round of grad school auditions, and I was lucky to have choices this time. First time I went for it was like straight out of undergrad, and like I got like one callback out of like all the auditions I did, and I remember that being like such a whoa moment. Um, and I think my reflection on that experience was that I was trying to show a bunch of people what I thought they wanted to see as opposed to just doing what I was great at. And so it was like no surprise in reflection that, I didn't go the places I wanted to go.
Yeah.
But I remember for that school I got a call back for, the day before was my very first audition for any of the schools. Big institution, and I think it was like their grad students running the audition. And I walk in the room, right? And I could just tell by the way they looked at me that I wasn't what they were looking for one reason or another, and like can't really put my finger on what that was. But straight up, like I did a 5-minute audition for him because they let you do 2 pieces, and man, they looked up from their paper for maybe like 15 seconds. And it's like this really interesting thing where you're facing real-time rejection in the moment. Like, it's a lost cause, but I think like deep down, you just got to be like, all right, I'm going to just ball out. And just do everything I can and make them look up. Yeah. And honestly, like in that moment, the fact that I got them to even look for 15 seconds was like crazy. And I almost think like that was sort of a test in a weird way. But I don't know, man. That was one of the wildest auditions I've ever been to. And that was my very first one for grad school. And a lot of people, when they're doing their grad school auditions, they prep. They're like, these are the 2 monologues I'm going to do. I might have a third one if they ask for it. I kind of, I Russian roulette my auditions a little bit. I'll have like 6 ready to go, and I'll see how I'm feeling. But I went into that audition being like, oh, these are my 2. And I'm like going down, just honestly that there's nothing worse than going down an elevator with a bunch of other people who also didn't get what they wanted. Like elevator of broken dreams, bro. Yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. But I'm like going down that elevator and I'm just thinking, all right, I'm going to whip out some other monologues tomorrow. Just get up, go again. And I think that's what it's going to be about, because it's like, I think for me, rejection over time, just thinking on it, reflecting on it, I just say I'm not on time yet.
Okay.
I will be on time. Yeah, I'll be on time eventually. I'm just not on time right now, but I'll be on time.
Would you say that it did anything to your confidence, whether it helped your confidence or lowered your confidence?
In that moment? I think it just sort of shook it off. Because again, I was sort of I was just stunned by the experience. I was like, I've never been to an audition where like, cause you'll go to some where you see them sort of check out like as you're going through the pieces, but I've never been one, or I've never been one where that was the experience from the jump. Yeah. And so I kind of tried not to take it too personally, cause I was just kind of like, I'm just not what they're looking for. Again, I'm just not on time. Yeah. And for, Ohio State, I was on time.
that last thing you said with not taking it personally, that is the goal. I'm literally about to go teach that right now to my students is to not take criticism or rejection or whatever personally because it'll help you out a lot more as a person trying to move forward in whatever it is you want to do if you don't take it personally because it won't affect you as much as it would if you did take it personally.
So let me ask you this: have you ever had a source of rejection that's come from either a friend or a peer or a colleague that you value closely, and there's just that extra layer of sting to it?
Yeah, probably just in high school theater, man. Just there was probably like when I first started, like around my freshman year and sophomore year, there were times where I would audition for things and I would feel really confident going into the audition and I would give it my all and then callbacks come out or no, make it to callbacks, but then the cast list would come out and it just wouldn't get cast in the role I thought or just wouldn't get cast at all. And it'd be, ultimately the decision of a director that I really, you know, appreciated and loved and cared about at the time. So it's just like, as a young kid, you have to learn not to take it personally. And I just literally had to be like, okay, this can't be personal. It has to be a skill thing because whenever I would think about, is this a personal decision? Is it because they wanted this person over me, or is it because they don't like me, or whatever the case may be? That would make me go into this whole rabbit hole about my feelings about this. But whenever I would think about like, okay, it wasn't personal. Maybe I just need to work on my articulation, which was a note that I got forever in high school. But I was like, maybe I need to work on my articulation more. Maybe I need to, I don't know, be more stronger as an actor, whatever the case may be. Then I put it on myself, and then I went to go work on those things, and then I came back, and then I started to see the growth, and I started to see the benefits of me working hard because I started to get the roles I wanted and things like that. So just not taking it personal,
Yeah.
not taking it personal.
I think it's a really interesting conversation because in this field, inevitably, people are going to go for the same opportunities as you. We've had like little doses of that experiment, or we've had little moments of that experience here, whether that's auditions or outside the classroom opportunities where we've been up on the same, we've been up for the same things, and it's just one of those moments where it's just sort of, may the best person
Yeah.
get it, and
Yeah.
it's just this is an opportunity, and you might be on time for something that I'm not on time for, or
Mm-hmm.
vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's the way it shakes out. And I think as I've gotten older, that's just something I've had to find more and more comfort with. But again, comfort sort of drives me to another direction because you do got to kind of ask yourself, it's like, all right, this what didn't I have in this moment? And then go that direction. And if it's something you don't have, it's going to be something new. It's going to be something you're probably going to fail at and look, a little silly at the first time, and that's fine.
Yeah. What you're saying about the time, like what you're on time for, or maybe what you're not on time for, I think that's a good mindset for me or for anyone to take into this career field moving forward because there's going to be times where we're going to audition for things and I'm possibly not going to get the role for certain things. And I just can't beat myself up about it and just know, like, okay, it's just not my time. But maybe
Hmm.
next week, maybe next month, maybe next year, I'll be on time for something that this was what it was meant to be. So just having that mindset to be pretty good. So I'm taking that with me for sure. So thanks for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I had a professor at UF, and I spoke about him previously, but Tim Altmaier, amazing guy. He was talking to me just sort of about, I think, sort of the dry periods of an actor's career. It's like you might go 2, 3 years with just nothing,
Dang.
you know, and like you just got to keep chipping away at it because this is what you love to do. And if you truly love to do it, you'll stick with it. Because I'll be honest, like I think, um, I think rejection can break a lot of people and a lot of career paths
Mm.
because it's not an easy thing to overcome. Um, and again, it's like I'm telling you, as I've gotten older, you know, um, like I've learned to process it a different way, just thinking in terms of time. But like I used to, like when I was younger, like I didn't deal with those things in the most healthy way. Like I would get upset. I'd be like, I want nothing to do with this project. Like keeping rejection letters and things, just like very, dude, I used to have a whole drawer,
That's nice though.
and but the thing is, like, eventually that drawer got full, and you have this visual representation, and it's just kind of like you have to have a moment of acknowledgement where you're like, well, this isn't gonna stop. You're always gonna have rejection in life, and there is no, again, it's this dragon you chase. There's no moment where it's all going to go away. You're never ever going to be rejected for anything again in your life. It just simply isn't reality. And there's also not a reality where you get to a place where every single person along the way just goes, oh, I can't believe I turned them down. Everyone's in their own lane in life.
Yeah.
And so all that was doing, that drawer, was chipping away at me and eating at me, and maybe in an indirect way forcing me to keep people at an arm's distance because I was just clocking, every moment it didn't work for me, and it was just that was something when I was younger. It was just like, this wasn't healthy. And like, yeah, is there, or was there, I think, like a short-term benefit at the time of just sort of being like, okay, I'm going to let this be fuel for me? Yeah. But you try to start a fire with papers, it's not going to burn as long as if you start it with logs. If you have a solid foundation, you're going to burn for longer. And, so if you're trying to burn papers, you're going to burn out really quick.
Yeah. That's great mindset going into this world. I know, like for me, now I'm the only one who came straight from undergrad into this program. The people had time to be out there and experience, times with no work or times where things are moving slower, things like that. So I'm ready for it all. I'm ready to get out there and ready to see things moving fast and see things moving slow, but just all in all, being persistent and consistent in everything that I want to do, which is this, and smiling every day.
Yeah. Find a reason, man. Yeah, there's balances you got to find in life where I think we have this really like capitalistic driven society where it's the grind set thing, and I do think grind and determination is very important. Like I think it's critical to be so intentional with your effort. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a grind in what you do, but I think there's maybe this standard that you always have to be chipping away at it all hours of the day. And to me, that's simply not true. I think it's important to go home, take care of yourself. For me, it's like going home, being with my fiance, being with my dog, like going out, being in nature, things like that. Because I think, again, it's those moments where you're in the work, you're in the zone. And then when you step away from it for a moment and you get fresh air, fresh perspective, I actually think you come back to it with a much more mature mindset and maybe a wider worldview in the process. So I think that's a way to maybe look at those dry periods. Is just sort of like, okay, you can look at it as I'm not getting anything. And it's like, all right, let me just rack in my focus on my grind, on my intention, but also just view this as an opportunity to breathe.
Yeah. That's something I have to lock in myself too, because anytime that I'm not actively working in this field, whether it's like, let's say the summer, for example, let's say it's a summer break, and I just want to take a break. I feel like I'm doing the wrong things. I feel like there's someone else out there that's waking up early and they're honing their craft. They're rehearsing new monologues. They're reading new plays. They're going to go see this and that. And
but that's the thing. Right now, they might be on time. They might be on time right now. Everyone's got a time. And that's that's something I've had to really think about, because you wake up in the morning, you hop on Instagram. The more we work in this field, the more we make connections, the more we have actor friends. You're like, oh man, they booked a movie. Oh, they're in a play. They just booked another one right after that one. Like it adds up, and I think in a way you indirectly absorb that. I'm not saying you, but I think sometimes people indirectly absorb that as rejection. They take other people's success.
Oh yeah, that's what you mean.
And absorb that as their own rejection, and it's just simply not true.
Can't do that. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah,
literally. So like I was told that back in my junior year in high school, and like literally move forward with not comparing myself to nobody at all times. So it's just like whatever path they're on, that's what they're on. Whatever path I'm on, that's what I'm on. I'm just going to focus on my lane, because the moment you start to drift off out of your lane, that's when you crash and things start going wrong. So just staying in my lane and not comparing myself to nobody and where they are and things like that. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. Everywhere else, we are Bennett and Carr, so follow us, get in contact. And even if there's any type of different topics you want us to talk about, be sure to message us via DM and we'll mention it on the channel sometime.